What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick B-Dog, and this is my game, Bulby's Afraid of the Dark. This is my third game that I created for Mini Jam number 157, and today I'm going to be doing a little retrospective, going over the art, programming, and the game design, and then I'll go over the results and reviews I got, and give some final thoughts on how everything went. So, without further ado, let's dive in there. So starting off with the things that went well with game design is I actually followed the theme for this game jam. The way Mini Jam works is there's a theme that's announced when the game jam is announced. In this case, the theme was electric. And then there's a limitation that's announced when the game jam starts. And this is some limitation that you need to follow for your game. In this case, the limitation was on a timer. And after some thought when the game jam was announced, I decided it'd be cool to do something where the player's light radius is on a timer, so the light radius is constantly shrinking as they move from point to point, and that kind of ties into the electric, and it also is great with the on a timer theme or limitation. So yeah, I think that was actually pretty good use of the theme and limitation. Compared to my last game jams, this is a fantastic upgrade, so this is something that went really well. For this game jam, I decided to focus a little bit more on getting some more interesting mechanics in there. I decided to make a platformer again. If you saw my last two videos, you know I already made two platformers, but that's okay. I just love making platformers, so whatever. So at this point, I've got the scene management mostly figured out. I know how to do animations, tile maps, all that stuff. So I thought it'd be good to focus on making some more interesting player mechanics here. And in this case, I decided to do some wall jumping, because who doesn't like wall jumping? And I also added a parachute mechanic to like slow the players falling, and I thought that would be kind of interesting with the fact that your light radius and life is kind of always on a timer. So with the slowing yourself down with floating, you're making it easier to control yourself in the air, but at the same time you're slowing yourself down and making it harder to make it to the next checkpoint in time. And yeah, I think this is really cool. It's fun to add new mechanics and outside of just your standard move and jump in a platformer. And moving on to the things that didn't go so well with the game design is I really wish I would have added more mechanics. I wanted to mess around with like fans, blowing you up while you're parachuting or blowing you around. I was thinking of doing like because there's charge pads that recharge your battery, but I thought it'd be cool to also put like batteries that recharge your battery. So maybe you can do like a long floating section, and you have to grab the batteries while you're floating through. Ultimately, didn't have enough time to do any of that, but would have been cool to add it for sure. I didn't do a great job with the difficulty curve in this game. It gets pretty hard on the third and especially the fourth level, and I didn't put any checkpoints. I wanted to, I just ran out of time. But people don't really like replaying the beginning of the level over and over again just to try the end. Especially on the fourth level, it's even the beginning's kind of challenging, and especially the last section's pretty tough. So really should have added checkpoints. And there's also not a lot of lights in the game, especially as the player's getting further away from a charge pad, getting close to the next one. It gets pretty dark, and I really should have added more lights to guide the player around. It's kind of hard to remember when you're making a game that you know what the layout of these levels are, but the player obviously won't. So you got to kind of guide them a lot more than I think about. So it's something to focus on in the future. And I mentioned it before, but there's only 4 levels in the game, and it's all really linear. It's just a straight line to get through the entire game. And I really wanted to do more optional challenges, like side rooms to get some kind of optional collectibles, that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I think I've realized that I'm better at platformers than the average player is, because a lot of people complain that the end of my games are too hard, or just they're too hard in general. So I'd like to move the harder stuff into optional challenges to get collectibles or something, because I think it's fun to do more challenging stuff and that stuff. But I can see the average player wanting a more like medium difficulty kind of game. I think I'd like to do more medium, ramping up to kind of hard difficulty for the path through the game, and then the really challenging stuff I can put in optional collectibles. And moving on to the things in the art that went well, there's actually a lot of things that went well with the art this time. Got a lot of feedback that people liked the art and the animations I did. So the first thing that went well with the art is I'm pretty happy with Bulby's character design. I mean, it's just a light bulb. Like, there's only so many ways you can make a sprite for a light bulb. I think I did a good job giving him a little character and personality with his little smirk and the backwards hat. So yeah, I'm happy with Bulby's design for sure. And I think I did a good job with the animations for Bulby as well. I'll show all the animations on the screen here, but there's almost 40 frames altogether for all of his animations, which I think is a pretty good amount for a Game Jam character. And I made an animation for most things I could think of, really. I'll link it down below, but I was following Pedro. I'm not sure how to say his last name. He's the pixel artist for Celeste, and he's got a really nice set of tutorials. So I was following that for the jump and the wall jump animations. And yeah, if you're curious about learning more about pixel art or animations, definitely click the link down there because it's a crazy useful. I use it all the time when I'm doing pixel art or trying to learn more about it. I also picked all the colors myself for this game jam instead of using a palette off a low spec like I have in the past. And I'm not saying you're a bad pixel artist if you pick palettes off a low spec. It's totally fine. Just for me and my personal goals, I'd like to learn more about color theory and work on hue shifting when picking different shades of a color. So yeah, I think I did a good job. It all looks pretty cohesive. I think went with like a purple pink kind of thing for the background, and yeah, I think it all looks pretty cool, and I'm happy with the colors I chose. I think I made a pretty cool background for the game too. The background itself that I drew is I'd say it's only okay. It's kind of like crumbling cityscape is what I was going for, but definitely could have done some more variety with the buildings and probably some more detail in the foreground ones, but that's all right. I did a cool parallax effect in the game engine itself where you split up all the different layers of the background and then you make the ones closer to the foreground move fast and then the ones further away move slower. It kind of gives the illusion that there's some depth to the background, and I thought it looked pretty cool. And it wasn't too hard to set up either, so yeah, definitely going to do parallax in the future and try and do some more detailed backgrounds too, I think. And the last good thing with art is I think I came up with a pretty funny end screen. I'm not going to show it in this video, not because it's like not safe for work or something like that. I just like to have the end screens as kind of like a reward for playing through the game, I guess. So yeah, if you want to see it, go check out the game. It's a link down below. And yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. It's not like hilarious though. Like don't come at me if you don't think it's that funny. Like it's pretty good though. Moving on to the things that didn't go so well with the art. There wasn't really that much I could think of, but of course there's always stuff you can improve on. Like I was just talking about, the background could have been more detailed. But the main thing I think I could have done better with the art was I would have liked to add more decorations and just movement in general in the levels. After the jam, I added checkpoints, and there's a nice waving flag, and there's some lightning traps with an animation. But other than that, the levels are totally static and not moving, and I think that makes the game look kind of boring and not that interesting. So I think it's something I'd definitely like to focus more on in the future. And moving on to the programming section, I'll start off with things that went well, because there's kind of a lot of stuff that didn't go so well, but I like to pat myself on the back first. So the first thing is I learned a lot about lighting in Godot. I didn't know anything about how to do light and shadows and all that, and I think it makes the games look a lot more interesting when there's lighting in a 2D game. So I've wanted to learn about it, and no time like the present. So it's actually really easy to set up. You just do like a canvas modulate node on your level, and then set that to black or whatever color you want the shadows to be, and then you put point lights on your character and wherever you want lights to be, and you can set the texture scale for how big that is. So that's all the game is doing when the light radius is shrinking. It's just the texture scale going down on a timer, and once it reaches a small enough number, have it kill the player and reset the level. And yeah, this all went really well, and I figured it out pretty quick too. So that was great. And I also created a scene manager that's way more robust than the one I used for my last game. If you saw my last video, the way it worked was you needed to make a different script for every single level, and then the scene manager just had a big switch statement essentially to decide which level to load, and it was really hacky and not scalable. So I found this YouTube video from a channel called Bacon and Games. I'll link it down below if you're curious. And it's really nice. You just pass in the scene or the path to the scene that you want to load, and it handles unloading the current scene, loading that one in, and it's supposed to handle having a nice transition too. I'll get into why mine didn't have that in the not so good section, but I have added it now if you want to check out the game. But yeah, the scene manager I'm using is so much better than the one I used in my last game, and I think I can really scale on this and keep building on the scene manager to make future projects even better. And I think the wall jump mechanic that I added feels pretty good. I went back and played some Super Meat Boy because I think that game's got an awesome wall jump mechanic. And one thing I noticed is when you start holding the direction opposite of the wall you're on, he kind of sticks to the wall a little bit, because I've played some Game Jam games with wall jumps where the second you press that key you fall off the wall. It makes it kind of hard to like ping pong back and forth between walls like you would want to. So I think I did a good job programming the wall jump mechanic. It feels good. Nobody really complained that it was hard to pull off or anything like that. And moving on to the stuff that didn't go so well with the programming, and there's kind of a lot of them, so strap in. But the first one is the scene manager didn't have transitions between levels, and that's not the YouTube tutorial that I followed. They have level transitions or whatever transitions between scenes, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to work with the lighting because the loading screen is on a different canvas layer than the rest of it. I was having issues. I tried putting like a point light on the loading screen itself. Ultimately, I've fixed it now. I just decided to not despawn the player until the loading screen finishes transitioning in. I didn't think of that during the game jam though, so I don't have any footage of it because probably another thing that didn't go so well is I didn't use version control at all during this, so if I would have lost the files at some point, it would have just been all over. So I don't have the older version of the game that was actually submitted during the game jam. I just have the fixed up version for post game jam. But yeah, I got a lot of feedback that the transitions were really disorienting, especially it's a really linear game, so it didn't even make sense for me to make it so you could go back and forth between levels. Originally, you were supposed to be able to explore more, and it would make more sense to do that. There was also no transition when you died, so you'd die and then it would just like flash you back to the beginning of the level. Just overall not great, but I fixed it now, so that's cool. And the character always spawned at the beginning of levels, which doesn't sound like that big of a problem until if you beat a level and then walk backwards and die, all of a sudden you have to replay the level that you just beat, and that's not great. So I've also fixed that now just with adding checkpoints. But yeah, I got a lot of feedback that the dying was pretty disorienting to figure out where you were in the game after dying. I didn't have any camera limits for the levels either. I fixed it now, so I'll show some footage of my last game because that didn't have any camera limits. But as you get to the edge of the level, ideally the camera would lock towards wherever the level ends, and then the player can just walk towards that. Instead, the camera kept moving, and I didn't keep building the level after that. So it kind of just looked like you were going to fall off a cliff. But really, there's a nice invisible door to take you to the next level. So another thing that's pretty disorienting for players, and it wasn't super hard to fix either. Um, I don't know if it's a good way to fix it, but I just added a collision shape around the level, not for actual collision, but just to get the bounds of where the camera should be. And yeah, it's pretty easy to set up and everything. So I I fixed that now, and should have really done that for the game jam because it probably took me like, I don't know, 15 minutes, a half hour to figure it all out. And I think it makes the game look a lot better. And the final thing that went bad with the programming is I should really set up a state machine for the animations. The way I'm handling it now is just a lot of if checking and setting booleans in the physics process that's figuring out if you're jumping or wall sliding, and then I just have a function that updates the animation based on those booleans being set, and it's all really hacky and kind of hard to scale. And if you want to add new animations, it's kind of a nightmare. If you want to find bugs, it's kind of a nightmare. And also the player script is just getting huge. I mean, there's a lot of code just for handling the player's movement and all that. And then to have all of the animations in that script too is kind of a lot. So should really separate that out into a different script and should really use a state machine because the way I'm doing it now is not super scalable and it's kind of hard to maintain myself. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. How did I do? So there were 120 submissions in the jam, and I came in 10th place overall, and that's awesome. That's a really high compared to any other jam I've done in the top 10%. That's sweet. Um, for use of limitation, I got 6th place, presentation 16th, enjoyment also 16th, and concept 24th. So those are all super great. My other game jams I've been more in like the middle of the pack, or my first one more in the back of the pack. So to be towards the top is awesome, and it's nice to see I'm improving and people like what I'm cooking up over here. And I'll scroll through the comments here, but just an overall summary of what people liked. They liked the character design, the art, and the animations a lot. They thought Bulby was cute and his parachute cap was cool. They liked the parallax background a lot, and people liked the controls for the movement and wall jumping, parachuting all felt good. For things they didn't like, people really found the level transitions jarring, which I should have known because people told me the level transitions were jarring in my last game, and I did nothing to address that. So I've got it fixed now, but I really should have had it fixed for the game jam. And a lot of people thought the game was too hard, mostly because there were no checkpoints. I've also added those now, so at least I'm trying to address feedback. Addressing the feedback, I can learn even more, which is the whole goal of all this. Yeah, but overall, people really seem to like it, and 10th place is fantastic to me. Really happy with the results. And for my overall thoughts for how the game jam went, I think it went great. 10th place overall is fantastic. I've never done a 3-day game jam before, and it's actually it was pretty tough. I mean, doing all the art and programming and level design and all that in just 3 days is pretty challenging. But I think it was a good experience for me because I struggle with procrastination a lot in general in my life, but especially with game jams. So with a 3-day jam, you don't really have a lot of time for procrastination, and I think I did a pretty good job of giving like 3 solid days of effort into this game, and I think it shows. I made a reasonably polished game in 3 days, and people seem to like it. So yeah, super happy with that. And yeah, it's just cool to get feedback and hear people saying that they like the art you made or they thought the game was fun, and the constructive criticism is nice too. It's good to learn. I think in the future I should really get some playtesters because a lot of stuff I probably would have found out from playtesters. I could have had an even better game for the game jam. So that's something to focus on in the future. I'll have to I'll have to find somebody that's willing to play my games, I guess, before they're done, so I can get some playtesting going on. yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you found this informative or helpful or whatever you're trying to get out of it. And if you want to see more videos like this, feel free to click the like or subscribe button. If you want to tell me anything or tell me that you hate me, whatever, leave a comment down below. And yeah, keep doing game jams, and I'll see you guys in the next one.